So, let's talk about the film, shall we? The story for Luxo Jr. is very, very simple if you step back to think about it. A big lamp, Luxo, watches a little lamp, Jr., play with a ball, and eventually deflate it by accident. After this initial disappointment, Jr. comes back with an even bigger ball and commences playing again. End of story. With such a basic and frankly, a kind of uninteresting plot, the power of Luxo lies in the details, specifically the body language of the lamps, the establishment of the parent-child relationship, and the strategic choices regarding sound. Again, something you probably didn't think about. So, the film begins by piquing the audience's curiosity with a static image of a realistically rendered desk lamp. You may be very used to seeing a desk lamp, but you have not seen it as a computer-generated image. I'm trying to get you in the mind space of 1986. So, computer-generated imagery was such a new field in 1986. This in and of itself was impressive. It also foreshadows animation's potential to create an image that is so lifelike, it tricks you into believing it is live action, however briefly. And we'll talk about this a lot many weeks down the line when we talk about Blue Umbrella, but if you want to give yourself a treat, go look up the 2013 film The Blue Umbrella, which premiered in front of Monsters University. And you'll see why this is all quite relevant to that. But, back to Luxo. So, Luxo Jr. remains completely still until a ball rolls in from off-screen, and that is the impetus for the lamp to come to life. It's the magic wand. But in story terms, he's just curious. What is this? And so he looks around it. And therefore, life is now manifesting itself in this ball. That ball is life. However, briefly, the ball's journey points to the fact that no matter what happens on screen, there is a world off screen that is animate. So we can't see it, but our imaginations can run wild about what's going on off screen to make this ball come in on screen. So it also associates life with the figure pushing the ball to Luxo. Again, at this moment, Z only exists in our imagination. But since that will turn out to be Junior, he will always be associated with vitality. So after the ball rolls in, Luxo shines his light on the ball and moves his head around it. Or his head. What we assume to be his head around it, showing off the fact that he is as unfamiliar with this ball as we are with the style of animation. So this is a magical moment, because this is the moment that Pixar's first character comes to life, which is kind of huge when you think about their history now. So this is their first character, and this is the moment he goes from a image to a character. So Disney animators, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, who wrote this awesome book called The Illusion of Life, cite, quote, a special ingredient in animation that produces drawings that appear to think and make decisions and act of their own volition. It is what creates the illusion of life, end quote. Again, like I said, Lasseter was a classically trained animator. These are the things he was educated in. So he managed to capture that ingredient that Johnson and Thomas refer to in these moments. So Luxo's movement produces a consistency in tone, where the audience, the protagonist, and the creators all feel the same emotion at one time. We are all careful explorers in an unknown universe, responding to a new thing with wonder and curiosity. Or hopefully. If you don't, I don't think you have a soul. So Lasseter raises the suspense of the situation by having Luxo start a game of ball with the mysterious off-screen force, which adds gentleness to the tone of the film. How scary is someone that plays ball? So the off-screen presence is not menacing if all it wants to do is play, and neither is Luxo if he wants to play too. Like, this is not a horror film, or if it is a horror film, it's a really terrifying one because it gets you all off guard. So since this ball is a toy, it also foreshadows the fact that the off-screen presence is a child, and begins to establish the relationship between Luxo and the soon-to-be-introduced Junior. This is not going to be a romantic love story, like I said, not a horror film. James Bond isn't going to come out and start shooting things. It's a parent and a child. So this exchange also gives the studio a chance to show off some of its new technology. So the engineers were actually able to create an exact path for the ball and have the ball rotate naturally along this line. So, something, again, we take for granted, but the programming mimics proper physics, and therefore the studio eliminates the possible point of distance between the film and the audience by not settling for rudimentary animation. Because they put in the extra work, we don't look at it and go, oh, this is a new technology, and therefore it looks kind of primitive. Instead, we're just kind of like, oh, it's a ball rolling along the floor. So, the programming mimics proper physics. I already said that. You've caught me, I'm reading something. Anyways, every time the ball rolls past Luxo is an advance in the technology of the time, yet it does not draw attention to itself as such. The story needed a ball, so they worked to create one whose movements would not reveal the creative force behind the movie. You don't want to be thinking about John Lasseter when you're thinking about Luxo and his son. Unless, of course, you were thinking about gender. The ball also has a purpose in regards to the plot, because when the ball rolls off screen and then back, it is a turning point in the story. Remember, this is very short, very simple, so something as small as the ball rolling on and off is actually a significant turning point. If you study story structure, turning points mark the act breaks and the action. So it introduces the possibility of a new character and will switch the film over from being an introduction to Luxo as a character to a story about the relationship between Luxo and this other character. Single lamp to two lamps. It has a lot more to say than a single person and two people. So this is punctuated by an overt and large movement by Luxo, which is just a fancy way of saying he reacts in surprise to what he sees and kind of that's startled, like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It is his largest movement so far, and it corresponds to the excitement of the moment. He is going, what is this? We're going, what is this? It is all very, very exciting. So at this point, Junior hops on screen, and your world is made better, but more importantly, he changes the pace of the film. Before Junior shows up, everything moves slowly and has time to breathe. It's very sedate. It is very calm before this moment, and Junior, just like a real child, has absolutely no patience for this. So, while his dad moves methodically, Junior moves with lots of energy and buoyancy. This is my universal Junior sign. I don't know why. It's like a little, anyways. Sideline again. So, Catmull describes the power of this type of movement in the book Creativity Inc., which I referred to last lecture. And much like Thomas and Johnson, he claims that, quote, the definition of superb animation is that each character on the screen makes you believe it is a thinking being, whether it's a T-Rex or a Slinky Dog or a desk lamp. If viewers sense not just movement, but intention, or put another way, emotion, then the animator has done his or her job. It's not just lines on paper anymore, it's a living, feeling entity, end quote. So, Lasser has already established Luxo Sr.'s curiosity and tension, but Junior is actually the strongest example of an inanimate character's emotions brought to life. He's all emotion. He exudes joy and energy that make him alive rather than a desk lamp. So most distinctively, and this is my favorite part almost of any Pixar film, and the fact that I'm making a video blog about Pixar films and they're short shows how obsessed with Pixar I am. So this is a very large statement, is that Junior has a wiggle. It is a quick, back and forth, shake of the bend in his body that complements all his activity. It is a silly element, but it is one of the strongest story elements of this dialogue-free narrative. It is also recognized as such, seen as the move is honored in the Pixar logo. He does a little wiggle before he jumps on the eye. So it happens at the beginning of each film. And so why is that important? Well, again, it makes Junior a character beyond the basic parameters of the plot. There is nothing in regards to our comprehension that the wiggle helps. It doesn't move the story along. It doesn't it teaches us a lot about his character, but it's not needed. And that's what makes it beautiful. So, it makes it identifies him as young. This is, again, my favorite. It identifies him as young both in spirit and in size. He's not just a baby lamp because he's small. He's a baby lamp because he's cute and playful and energetic. And that's all in this wiggle. It's a bit ridiculous, and it's also a cocky gesture. So again, another component added to this character just through this wiggle. He's cocky, and he's overconfident, and he's putting on a show for both us and Luxo. Also, though, he faces Luxo when he wiggles, which is an important detail. He doesn't really know about us, and he loves his dad. And so that's who he's focused on. That's who he wants to impress. And or at least that's who he wants to engage with. His quote-unquote head doesn't leave his father. And the gesture is simply a gesture of joy with no utility for the forward movement of the plot beyond expression. He is happy to be playing with his father, and in that moment, that's really all that matters. It's evidence of a closer relationship between the two of them, and that's what is the heart of the film. So, at this point in the film, the sound is brought more to the forefront, like I referenced way back in the beginning of this lecture. So, there's a trill attached to Junior's shake, and it gives the wiggle greater emphasis and adds to the silly tone of the movement. It is like the sound designer stepped in and was like, that's really cute, here's a little special sound effect to go with it. So, while this is the most overt sound effect so far, sound is used from the very beginning to tell the story, but just at a different level from the visual. So you might not have thought about it, but it's working to tell the story at the same time. So there are two main components to the soundtrack, the music and the noises the lamps make. So the music itself is not very distinct, but that's deliberate. It's part of its power. And we're getting to one of my favorite quotes here, so get ready. So Disney composer, so again we're backtracking in time, going back to Disney, not Pixar, Oliver Wallace says that the score should, quote, be like a beautiful carpet that complements the loveliness of the furniture and paintings in a room. If it is so glaring and obvious that you notice the carpet and don't notice the other features of the room, then the illusion of beauty is utterly destroyed. End quote. So Luxo Jr.'s score is essentially elevator music, and with that sort of background nature, it allows the images of the lamps to come to the forefront. It's the carpet, the lamps are the pretty furniture. So it's not distracting. Its precise timing, however, does serve the story. The music begins as the ball rolls in for the first time. So no music, life and vitality in ball, music. And it also helps bring the lamp to life. You could almost say that the music brings the lamp to life more than the ball does. So it changes again when the little lamp comes in. So Junior comes in, and the music gets faster and more energetic, just like the lamp itself. Like I said, Junior's entrance changes the pace of the film, and that is reflected in the music. In short, music helps tell us what we're supposed to feel. Again, we don't process it, but it's working there, and it's telling us how to feel. Think about the more dramatic moments you know in film. There's usually a dramatic score to accompany them, or lack thereof. So pay attention next time you're watching something to the music, and you'll see this happening. So, at the beginning, it's patient anticipation, but the second act, remember, ball, turning point, it's all joyful appreciation. It complements the action and helps the story come across at all sensory levels. If they shoot smells at you, I'm sure they would. So, the sound effects in Luxo Jr. work like the score. They're subtle, and they have the same aim not to overwhelm the image. They are part of the carpet. So they are mechanical and rooted in the lamps themselves, which is a really interesting thing to notice because it draws attention to the movement and the magical nature of the lamps moving on their own in the first place. Except for the big glaring exception, which is that they are moving on their own volition, they keep to the mechanical integrity of the lamps. So it's almost like this could be happening behind your back. So by constructing the lamps realistically, it actually makes the animate lamps look like they are seem like they are a part of our world as opposed to being purely imaginative. These are not some strange creature dreamed up by Lassiter. They are a real thing, and he's just thinking, what if they moved? So it allows the children to believe and the adults to believe temporarily, and the adults who refuse to grow up like me also believe that the lamps are moving when they're not looking. It is a concept that goes on when we talk about Tin Toy, and it goes on into Toy Story, this idea of what happens when we're not looking. So what is also significant about the sound effects is that while Luxo Sr.'s noises are purely mechanical, again, sedate, calm, the parent, Junior's trail is not actually rooted in his structure. So we're so distracted by the mechanical noises that we kind of don't think about this. But there is no spring or joint that would make the noise that Junior makes when he shakes. So it adds extra life to Junior's personality. If he can make noises that are not rooted in his structure, he seems more like a human or an animal. He becomes a magical being with that sound, both inanimate and animate at the same time. And it has the bonus of sounding like a kitten purr, and so he just seems more and more adorable. Basically, you just want Junior to be the most adorable creature ever without being sickly sweet. And they do it. So, after the wiggle, Junior departs to get the ball back. To maintain the energy, the cord moves up and down just like Junior's hops. So again, it's a small detail. You probably might not have even noticed it, or you just kind of registered it like normal. But Lassiter actually marks this as one of the hardest technical elements in the film. And there are multiple reasons this element is worth the effort. So first of all, the cord's presence adds to the mechanical integrity of the lamp because the lamp could not light up without the cord. Makes sense. You need to plug in a lamp to make it work. But more importantly, the cord is a physical embodiment of Junior's energy. Like I said, it bounces just like him. It exists in stark contrast to Luxo's perfectly still cord. And later, when Junior actually leaves the shot again, the cord reminds us that he's there. So the next few seconds are filled with the two lamps playing with the ball. He wiggles again to show confidence before he jumps on top of the ball, and as he rolls around on top, he looks around, adding once again to the element of exploration to this film. Adventure and exploration are huge Pixar themes and will come up again and again. So I won't talk about them a lot now, but that just mark that they are here in this film. So Junior is doing this not just to show off, but to see what will happen if he rolls around on top of the ball. Poke the bear, let's see what happens. So as we watch Junior roll around on top of the ball, we experience the suspense of waiting to see what happens as well. Why is he on top of the ball? What will change here? So the film is about Junior and what he discovers exploring his world, along with being about his father's reactions to such explorations. Again, basic story, this is what it's all about. So this innocent ball rolling is his big experiment, and therefore the climactic moment of the short film. So the tail end of the climax, though, happens when he deflates the ball by hopping on top of it. That's the big end to his experiment. Let's see what happens when we hop on top. Oh no, ball deflates. So this is marked by a change in the music. Dun dun dun. So before this point, the music has, like I said, been a jaunty soundtrack to the little lamp's antics. It contributed to the childlike atmosphere of joy and exploration, but this deflation is the first time the music stops completely since the very beginning, and the pace of the film slows down in order to linger on the moment the ball deflates. So the music's abrupt stop with Junior's mistakes allows the little lamp's departure to echo a few minutes later, and will allow Junior's return to be more powerful because it is reinforced by the return of the music as well. So Lassiter is trying to make this moment as dramatic as possible, and the music contributes hugely to that. So, meanwhile, the quiet juxtaposition with the previous energetic sequences reflects the disappointments in the two lamps as the ball deflates. Our spirits are lowered with the ball. So, to add insult to injury and to get a laugh, Junior flips the ball over to determine that it is indeed dead. So, This also, it is indeed dead, and this leads to the only dark moment of the film when Luxo shakes his head at Junior. We've all been there, on either end. Our parents have been disappointed in us, we have been disappointed in our children, and so it's an established moment the audience can relate to. Luxo shakes his head, everyone's sad. And Junior is completely dejected, and we know this because he completely crumples. Nothing is subtle with Junior. Everything is huge. So he hops off, so he's still hopping, but he does it really slowly this time. And the fact that the sound echoes here, along with the frame's lack of energy without the music, make this moment genuinely heartbreaking when compared to the joy that Junior brought to the frame before. There's no happy music, no mystery, and no hope of discovery. Luxo, meanwhile, is back to being still, and there is a moment of complete inaction. The animation actually becomes inanimate. So, it's a moment, and it doesn't last, but it's a very sad moment. But humor comes back when suddenly Luxo is surprised again. We're kind of snapped out of the depression, we're snapped out of the moment where we're kind of, all the cynics are like, wow, that was dark, because he gets surprised, and the joyful and resilient spirit of the child triumphs. Sorry, I like my more pretentious phrasing sometimes. So the music starts again, and we hear Junior hopping again, and it signals that he's coming back. So this time he's pushing a giant beach ball and moving even faster than before. So there's one last moment of recognition with the parents when Luxo looks directly at us and shakes his head. So the joy at the return takes all the potential anger out of this gesture. It's one of those kind of like resigned, like, this is my kid, this is what he does moments. And in the end, Luxo Jr. has learned nothing, but we embrace the joy and is happy in quite unfailingly positive spirit. He really does earn his happy ending. Ha ha ha.